And we're back on Southeast Texas Weekly, and we have some state political leaders in town from Austin. Michael Williams, the Commissioner of Education in the area, to talk with BISD about a troubling situation with our school district. Michael Troncalli's worked at length on this particular issue, and I know all of us have strong opinions about the education of our kids, be it Beaumont or wherever it may be. As we take a look at videotape from just this morning, taped on Friday, another FBI raid, this time at the homes of two purchasing and finance personnel, O'Kelly and Naomi Lawrence Lee's homes, raided this morning by the FBI and other authorities as state and federal authorities begin the idea of finding more and more details. Obviously, it is not it's not an indictment of any sort. It's an investigation, but it does point up the idea that, again, more and more BISD personnel are being investigated on potential criminal charges. Michael Troncalli, are we seeing a good time from the vantage point of the critics of this administration? Are we seeing things move in the right direction? Or are we going to see a lot of these things happen and the school district be in disarray? Questions about lowering the accreditation have been raised as far as the district. Should we look at this as the beginning of possibly a stronger time for the school children of Beaumont? Or should we look at this as, a shoe that has dropped and troubling days ahead for the students themselves?
As I told Commissioner Williams the other day in a private conversation I had, this is going to hurt. It's going to be like lancing a boil, but it's necessary for the healing to begin. And I believe that once we get through this process, and there probably will be more indictments ahead, that this community can begin to heal. I think you're already beginning to see this community come together. People from all walks of life are demanding excellence in education, and they're demanding accountability. And one thing that I think is significant that the media has not really picked up on is the fact that in Plano, Texas, a gentleman is being investigated by Malcolm Bales for stealing up to $7 million. He's a white gentleman. And it shows that they are prosecuting people who are of bad character. It has nothing to do with the color of the skin, which has been the repeated response by school officials, especially even members of the board.
Do we all believe that? Do we all believe that the matter of race has not been introduced at too significant a level in this entire conversation about Beaumont ISD? Has race, become a factor above just has there been a hypercritical attack based on race as opposed to plausibly a reasonable criticism of the district for things that have gone wrong? Anybody have comments regarding that?
Our race is called every single time now. Every time something comes up, we hear race so much. It's been minimized to such an extent that it doesn't have the impact.
It no longer flies, and now there's a coordinated effort by the U.S. Attorney, our new district attorney who was appointed by Governor Perry, as well as the TEA and all these other investigative forces. And I think this is going to root out the problem. And once we do this, and once we get this school district moving in the right direction, then we need to come together as a community, all people, all races, everyone, and not talk about things that divide, but talk about our common shared goals.
Let me see if I can take us back to this conversation. I wasn't satisfied we'd gotten to the bottom of it. The deinstitutionalization of America back in the 1960s when it came to mental health issues. If you look at all these shootings, you look at the Fort Hood shooting, you look at these scenarios in which a Congresswoman, Gabby Giffords, was shot, it seems like a great many of these suspects in these cases had guns, but quite honestly, they were troubled, they were emotionally disturbed at some level. If this country really began to fix this issue of how we handle the mentally ill, would we be in far better shape? Is there more that the administration could do, in your view, to rectify this issue?
We'd definitely be better off if we could address the issues and address people and provide care for them. Kevin, probably one thing viewers are not aware of is the commitment process to commit individuals is so difficult, so strenuous. All of your constitutional rights and protections are afforded to you throughout the process. So an involuntary commitment is really a difficult process.
You know, you see a lot of these situations, the Aurora, Colorado shooting. Even the students, you know, quite often are having emotional issues that we just don't seem to, as a country, be stopping. We don't seem to notice the threat, which is why the president's comments this week about detecting the threat, and really the Army's comments about detecting the threat in advance, seem like a big deal.
Well, it probably is, especially when family members are saying, you know, we've tried to do something about this and couldn't get anything done. The father of the shooter up in Connecticut, you know, talked about how embarrassed he was to be the father. But they don't seem to have any weapons.
Well, how are you going to create a governing platform to single out, pick up individuals, bring them in for 2 or 3 days, get them shrunk down, and afford their rights? I mean, you're getting ready to go out to dinner with your wife, and there's a couple guys here that say you're going to go down to county health for 3 days.
I think there may be an even broader issue, which I'll just mention briefly, and that is, as a society, we need to think about our children who are not being brought up with appropriate values, and so much instability which seems to exist in a greater degree than in generations past.
And with that, we have to run very quickly. But Jeff Lewis, Beaumont City Councilman W.L. Pate, and Godfrey Leggett are back. Godfrey, the star of the show, when we return on Southeast Texas Weekly.